Hello from Tennessee.
Hello from Tennessee. So a little while back I started what I'd hoped to be an ongoing series, and I kind of took a respite from it, but I'm going to continue up with my thought process and continue with Reflections of a Watch Enthusiast, and this is the 5th installment. So the genesis for this discussion video is I was watching a video recently from my buddy Random Rob. He did a vid. I think he was doing. Oh, okay, I got it. I'm remembering now. One of the guys and a new member to our Discord, his name's John, sent him a watch, which was an early Microbrand for Rob's review. And Rob was making the point that both John and Woody, who is in the Discord as well, are really long-term Microbrand enthusiasts. So it got me thinking a little bit from the standpoint of actually, I want to give a little more additional context. So I've been collecting around 6 years. I've owned tons of what would be considered microbrands, but I started to go down this rabbit hole, and I'm probably going to continue on this for a little bit because I find it interesting, is just to try to understand, again, the genesis of the microbrand movement. And, my first thought was like, what was the first microbrand out there? And so I did a little bit of research. This might be open for interpretation, but according to my research, the first microbrand was Time Factor, and the watch was the Prosista, and we're talking about a time frame of like 1996 to 2001. And then in terms of others that were early on to the microbrand movement, you're going to be dealing with a company that I think I've heard of them before, or I've heard them mentioned, but MK2, which they were around 2002. And going back to Time Factors for a second, they still seem active right now. I took a quick look at their website. It looks like they're moving or something. I wasn't exactly clear, and honestly, I didn't spend a ton of time on it, so I may have totally missed the mark on that one. But MK2 was really interesting, and I started looking at some of their watches, and they got some interesting stuff for sure. And I'm not super familiar with them at all. Maybe I've seen them, like I said, but I'm not familiar. And then the last one I'm going to mention for right now is just Christopher Ward, which was founded back in 2004, and they were an earlier adopter of direct sales too as well. And they were able to, I think, start to take advantage of some of the internet evolution, the evolution from, watch forums, um, to more specific groups as the internet started to take off. That's another interesting thing too. That's kind of a subtext to all this, is how the internet changed the watch movement in terms of microbrands, and how that direct-to-consumer market started to open up and so forth. It's interesting, and there's definitely a direct correlation when you start looking at that evolution too as well. Now, I personally was not around for the watch forums themselves. Um, they were not something that I frequented. I may have looked at some, but I found them a little vitriolic. I found them a little bit, I don't know if that's the right word. I didn't really find a lot of negativity, I guess is the best thing I could say without beating up on anything. And so that just really wasn't my cup of tea. So I'm starting to lose my train of thought. Oh yeah, the internet. As the internet progressed, so did the ability of micro brands to flourish and so forth. So, so I say all that in way of a long introduction to really think about. Um, so one, we're thinking about like when the micro brands actually started, but secondarily, again, like how the internet kind of took that off. Now let's bring it back. Otherwise, this is going to go forever. Uh, I want to bring it back to, you know, what that means for me as an enthusiast, right? So I prefaced at the beginning saying I've owned lots of micro brand watches, and micro brands have always been kind of a part of my collection strategy to a degree. I mean, I think at one point in time I may have had as many as 8 to 10 in my collection, and now I think I'm down to fewer than that. But I have a couple examples here that I want to kind of bring into the conversation. Um, I recently picked up this Raven Vintage. This is from 2002. And when you think about Raven in terms of micro brands, you know, they came onto the scene in around '08. And it was the owner was involved with another watch brand, and he leveraged his experience to kind of, dive into the micro brand world. And this is the second Raven I've owned. Good solid brand, and by a lot of accounts, Raven watches is really up there with one of the OGs, especially before a lot of internet enhancements, smartphones, and everything kind of kicked in. And now the next, and I think that's an interesting concept too, from the standpoint of when some of these micro brands early on, before technology was more prevalent or more usable to cut out, advertising and all that, you could go direct to consumer. That was a big deal. And I think a watch company that epitomized this on the microbrand side was around 2019 when Second Hour came out with the Gin Clear. And I remember, so like when Raven started off, I really was not into watches at all. So like I didn't see the genesis of how they've kind of moved through, but I did get to see firsthand um, how Second Hour kind of entered that space, because the owner of Second Hour, he would be he was out there, using social media, responding to people, engaging with the enthusiast community, popping in on live streams and so forth. And so and I don't think I realized it, but like definitely a contrived way, and not in a negative way, but a contrived way to be able to reach enthusiast groups and not use a lot of marketing dollars. And so I think these are two great examples um, of micro brands that do that. And I particularly like this watch too. I like Second Hour as a brand. I've got a Mark II of the Gin Clear. I've been looking at a Mark III too as well. They had a new Mosaic kind of one coming out, but I've kind of moved on to something else now. And I've got a Fusion that I'm gonna probably flip soon too as well. But I plan on keeping this one, and then the other Gin Clear I have, and I can see myself adding another one. In terms of Raven, same thing. Like, well, let me go. We talked about accessibility quickly, or I talked about accessibility quickly. If you think about it, um, we all know if you're into micro brands that they offer insane value. When you start going used for watches, especially on the micro brand side, these were a little bit beat up when I bought them. I've took a Cape Cod cloth to them. I've cleaned them up a little bit. Um, and the value is insane. Like these two watches, I think this is a Miyota 9 series in it, and this one has an ETA movement in it, the Second Hour. and same value. I have less than $500 into these two watches. So I think that is amazing. And I get a little piece of history, especially with this one. And it gives me some content to start thinking about this. This is a huge rabbit hole if you think about it from a standpoint of just the evolution of microbrands and where are they going to go in the future as technology continues to shift, the ability probably for manufacturing with the evolution, in lack of a better word, of what we're learning about physics and everything else and machining and all the other components. I really think it's going to be I think it could be a boom for microbrands. I think it could allow accessibility. I think it could allow better quality. And for innovation and all kinds of cool stuff without having to have this big, huge organization. What do they call it? Vertical organization like Rolex, where they do everything themselves. I think these well-established micro brands that continue to evolve are going to do well, and I think they're going to do really well with the enthusiast community. I've kind of grown a little sour on just legacy brands. I don't think they bring. I have some, and I enjoy them, and I'm going to keep them. But at the same token, as I kind of go through this journey, I'm really, 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 really digging microbrands. And one microbrand, I'm going to leave on this because I've rambled on quite a bit here, but one microbrand that I'm going to be pursuing is Jack Mason. Jack Mason has a titanium GMT. It's an anthracite dial that I've kind of got my sights on. I've been watching that one. Good buddy of mine, you know who you are. You have far too many watches. You really should sell me that one. You already got another one. You don't need two Jack Masons. So I'm just saying, hit me up, call me. You know my number. That's it. So thanks for sticking in. This is an interesting topic to me, so I hope it made sense. I tried to go kind of. I did a little research, read it, and then just kind of get on and start rambling. So, and I guess the rambling is my reflective standpoint or my reflection. So, but hope you found this interesting. And as always, stay positive, make friends, enjoy the journey. Take care, everybody.